Level 1. The yard. The alarm goes off at 4:50, not 5:450, because the crew truck leaves the yard at 6:15 sharp, and you found out on your second day that sharp isn't a suggestion. You showed up at 6:17 once. Nobody yelled. The foreman, a broad, quiet man named Reyes, just looked at his watch, then at you, and said, "Truck doesn't wait. You do. You've never been late again." Your first month on a job site teaches you something office work never could. Your body is a tool, and right now it's a dull one. Day 2, your forearms are shot from hauling rebar bundles across a slab. Day 4, it's your lower back, from lifting a sheet of plywood the wrong way. Knees, not spine. A lesson Reyes gives you exactly once, without repeating it, because he expects you to remember. Day 9, it's your hands, blistered raw from a shovel handle, and an old-timer named Walt tosses you a roll of tape without a word, because everybody's hands looked like yours once. Mostly, in the beginning, you carry things. Buckets, block, conduit, lumber that looks light from 30 feet away, and isn't. You learn the right way to carry a load, and the wrong way. And the wrong way announces itself 2 days later as a dull ache your body sends you like a delayed invoice. You learn to read a site the way you'll spend the rest of your career reading sites not as a workspace, but as 100 small hazards waiting for the one person who isn't paying attention. A stack of 2x4s left in the wrong spot isn't clutter. It's someone's ankle at 6:40 tomorrow morning, in the dark, before the lights are even fully on. The older guys treat you with a mix of patience and quiet amusement. Patience, because they remember being exactly this useless. Amusement, because the things that trip you up now look obvious from where they're standing. The ones who make you feel small about it, you learn fast, aren't the ones worth learning from. Walt corrects you without ever once making you feel stupid for the mistake. You remember that. You'll use it later, on somebody else, in a version of this exact conversation you can't picture yet. You come home the first month more tired than you've been since you were a kid. Sleep harder than you have in years, eat like it's a job in itself. And there's a thing about the work that surprises you at the end of every single day. Something exists that didn't exist that morning, and your hands were part of why. That's not nothing. That's the whole reason half the guys on this crew never left the trade. Level 2, the apprentice. 8 months in, Reyes pulls you aside and asks if you've thought about the electrical apprenticeship posted at the Union Hall. You hadn't, not seriously, but you say yes before you've fully decided. Because saying yes to Reyes has worked out for you so far. 4 years. That's the apprenticeship, 4 years of night classes twice a week after full days on site, learning code, theory, math you haven't touched since high school. Alongside the actual hands-on work of pulling wire, setting panels, bending conduit until your wrists ache in a way that's different from the labor yard ache, more precise, more mental. The first year, you feel incompetent almost constantly. And nobody rushes to reassure you, because reassurance isn't really how trades work. You're expected to push through not knowing, rather than wait for someone to walk you gently past it. Your journeyman is a woman named Odessa Fenn, 22 years in the trade, who teaches almost entirely by doing the work beside you. She shows you a panel layout once, correctly, then expects you to attempt the next one yourself, correcting only what needs correcting, no lecture attached. That's the whole model. Watch, attempt, get corrected, repeat, and it only works if you're actually paying attention. You learn to pay attention. You buy your first real tool set in year 2, $340 you don't really have, because Odessa tells you flatly that a cheap linesman plier fails you at the exact moment you can least afford it to. You believe her because you've already watched it happen to somebody else's tool, at somebody else's expense, on somebody else's Tuesday. By year 3, you're doing work a licensed electrician would bill full rate for, getting paid apprentice wage for it, and everybody on site, Odessa included, knows it. That imbalance is the actual deal an apprenticeship makes with you. You take the underpaid years because of what's sitting on the other side of them. Level 3, the journeyman. You pass your journeyman exam on the second attempt, the first one. You choke on a load calculation you'd done correctly 100 times in practice, and never once under a clock. The license, once it's in your hand, is a floor, not a ceiling. It lets you pull your own permits, sign your own work, take jobs independently. What actually matters after that is the reputation you build on top of it, which the license itself has nothing to do with. You work for a mid-size commercial contractor for the next 2 years, one of 9 journeymen on the payroll. This is the stretch where the trade stops being about learning and starts being about production. The same panel install that took you 5 hours your first year on your own now takes 2.5. Not because you're cutting anything, but because your hands find the sequence before your brain finishes thinking it through. Every job looks different from the outside. Underneath, the structure repeats. Recognizing that repetition, faster than the next guy, is most of what efficiency actually is. Your reputation starts traveling the way trade reputations always travel through project managers and general contractors who talk to each other, who remember a name when they need somebody reliable on short notice. Reliable, in this business, sounds like a low bar. It isn't. Enough guys fail to clear it, showing up late, doing sloppy work, leaving a mess for the next trade, that the ones who don't get noticed fast and get called back first. Level 4. The lead. 7 years in, a contractor named Holloway Electric puts you in charge of a section, not the whole job, just the electrical package on a 4-story mixed-use build downtown, twice the scale of anything you've run point on before. You're now responsible for the work, the schedule, and 4 other electricians, and you discover almost immediately that managing people and doing the work are 2 entirely different skill sets, further apart than you expected. You have your first hard conversation in month 2. With a second-year apprentice named Bo who isn't lazy, just genuinely behind where he needs to be, and it's slowing the whole floor down. The conversation is short and plain, because that's how these conversations get handled in this trade. You say exactly what needs saying, once, and what happens next is either improvement or a transfer. And either outcome beats the alternative of saying nothing while the schedule quietly absorbs the cost of your silence. Inspections become personal now, in a way they never were as a journeyman. The city inspector who walks your floor is certifying work you're responsible for, and if it fails, that failure has your name attached to it in every meeting that follows. So, you start inspecting your own work before the inspector ever shows up, walking the panels, checking the runs, hunting for exactly what he'll be hunting for, catching it first. Level 5. The Foreman. 12 years into the trade, you're running the whole electrical scope on a hospital annex, not just a section of it, every sub-package, every timeline. Every point where your work has to interlock with plumbing and HVAC and structural steel without anybody stepping on anybody else's rough-in. The foreman is the person who makes the actual physical build function day to day. The project manager handles the client and the contract above you. You handle the reality of concrete needing to pour before the rain hits and the building needing to be dried in before the first cold snap. You run a 7 a.m. meeting every morning, 14 minutes, not 20. Every trade lead on site, no exceptions. What's happening today? What's blocked? What's about to become a problem that nobody's flagged yet but that you already caught walking the floor at 6:30, alone, before anyone else clocked in? You know this. Build the way you can only know a site by being on it before everyone else and staying after everyone else leaves. Most problems you catch early enough that they never become crises. Some don't give you that option. A rooftop unit arrives from the supplier 3 weeks late. A structural change comes down from the architect that reroutes half your conduit runs through beams that were never supposed to have holes in them. You solve it, or you find the person who can, and you keep the stress of solving it off the guys who are just trying to get through their own day. The best part of being foreman is the part nobody outside the trade understands. Walking a building that was a hole in the ground 11 months ago, watching the steel go up, watching it close in and turn from structure into space people will actually live and work inside. You'll drive past this hospital annex for the rest of your life and know something about it nobody who works there ever will. Level 6. The Site Manager. 15 years in and you're no longer running the day-to-day on any single site. You're managing the 4 foremen who do. They report to you. The subcontractors negotiate the bigger decisions with you directly. The project managers above you lean on you to translate between what the contract says on paper and what's physically happening on 4 different sites at once. Your week splits between sites and an office you never wanted and now genuinely need. The shift from hands-on presence to administrative oversight is one a lot of guys in this trade never make because they don't want to make it the site is where the satisfaction lives, where you understand exactly what you're doing with your own 2 hands, and the office turns all of that into schedules and spreadsheets and phone calls with people who aren't physically there. You get fluent in reading a project schedule the way you once got fluent in reading a blueprint, not just following it, but understanding where the slack sits. Which activities are actually load-bearing on the timeline and which ones just look urgent. Cost becomes real to you at this level in a way it never was before. Every sequencing decision, every subcontractor choice, every way you handle a problem on site carries a dollar figure attached to it that used to be somebody else's headache. You stop thinking purely in terms of correct work and start thinking in terms of value, because correct work, done at the wrong time or in the wrong order, still costs money that never needed to be spent. Level 7. The Ops Manager. 20 years in, and you move into the commercial side of the business, operations manager for Holloway, the same company that put you in charge of a floor 13 years earlier. You're now accountable for the commercial performance of every active project from groundbreaking to closeout, managing the claims process, negotiating change orders, making sure that when a job wraps, the company came out ahead instead of buried in the gap between what was agreed to on paper and what actually got built. Construction contracts are written assuming the relationship between contractor and client eventually turns adversarial, because it usually does, and they exist specifically to manage that friction. Understanding a contract means understanding what it means when things go sideways, and something always goes sideways. Unmarked utility lines nobody accounted for. A weather delay that blows past every contingency built into the schedule. A design revision that looks minor in the drawings and turns out to be a six-figure problem in the field. You start spending time in rooms you never set foot in as a journeyman with attorneys, in dispute mediation, in final account negotiations that drag on for months over spreadsheets tracking the full cost history of a project that took 2 years to build. You bring something into those rooms the finance people and the lawyers don't have. You've actually built the thing being argued about. That's worth more in those meetings than anyone expected it to be, including you. Level 8. The Director. 25 years in, and you're on the leadership side of Holloway now, not the company you joined as a laborer hauling rebar, but the one you've spent half your career helping build into something bigger. You oversee strategy, win new work, manage the relationships that bring projects through the front door, and run the systems and people who actually deliver on them once they're signed. The view from the top of a construction company is a view of thin margins, long timelines, and consequences for a bad decision that show up months after the decision itself. The industry has one of the highest business failure rates of any sector, and the reasons repeat themselves case after case: undercapitalized jobs, weak schedule control, sloppy commercial discipline. You've watched competitors who looked rock solid 1 year disappear the next, and you understand exactly why, because you've been close enough to see the actual mechanics of the collapse. You still walk job sites, not because operations need you there, but because the site is where you remember what any of this is actually for: the structure rising where there used to be dirt, the crew putting it there with their hands. You catch yourself explaining things to a 19-year-old apprentice on a walkthrough the same patient way. Odessa Fenn once explained things to you, and the kid listens the way people listen to someone who's already been where they're headed and is telling them something true about it. Level 9. The Legacy. 30 years since that first alarm at 450. 30 years of sites and trades and problems and buildings standing in places where, before you got there, there was just a survey stake and a hole in the ground. The career leaves behind something you can actually point at, not a metaphor you can drive across this city and see it. The hospital annex. The mixed-use tower downtown. A dozen smaller jobs nobody remembers the name of but you. None of that knowledge lives on the license you earned at 26. The license was the starting line. The real knowledge lives in 30 years of problems solved, decisions made under pressure, and the handful of lessons you got to learn the easy way instead of the expensive one. You pass it forward through the people you trained. Bo, the apprentice you once had a hard conversation with, runs his own crew now, and he's good better than you were at his stage, if you're honest. A few of your old journeymen are foremen on sites you'd be proud to walk. One kid you barely remember training is somewhere out there running his own outfit, doing to some 19-year-old exactly what Reyes once did to you at 617 in a parking lot.